It goes without saying that Battlefield 1 is a very important title. The failures that plagued the launch of Battlefield 4 and the issues of marketing a cops versus robbers game to a soldier and military based community means that Battlefield 1 somewhat has a huge weight on its shoulders. It's important for this game to do it right, otherwise the franchise as a whole is suffering from consecutive releases of games that have problems or games that simply just aren't fun for the wider audience after some of the enjoyment that we received after Battlefield 3. So this game seemingly has a pretty mammoth task. It has to appeal to the Battlefield community, it has to appeal to the wider audience, and most importantly, it has to do it right. It has to do lots of different components that Battlefield fans are used to correctly, and that involves everything from stability to map design. Now, there's lots of things that Battlefield 1 can improve on in Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 was by no means the worst game in the world. Actually, many would argue by the end of the game, after it was stable and people could have a good time with it, it's a really good Battlefield title as a whole. And BF4 acted as a really good learning process, both for the community in terms of how we should react to certain situations and what we can do to make a difference, and both to the developers as well, who learned that they could do things better with our influence and with our help at times. So today I thought I'd go over 5 things Battlefield 1 could do better than Battlefield 4, and this includes some of the things that we've learned from previous titles, alongside just a few things that stood out to me as glaring issues in the past. So the first problem, and arguably the most important thing that Battlefield 1 can do better than Battlefield 4, is performance and stability. Now, Battlefield 1 has suffered huge issues around launch. We had crashes, we had issues with the game, we had just loads of glaring problems in terms of glitches that made the game in many respects unplayable, and even during the development and course of the life cycle of the game, we ran into problems with servers, we ran into problems with balancing, and everything as a whole just seemed to build, and as a game, it was quite difficult to enjoy for a good amount of time. Now, Battlefield 1 can improve on this immensely. First and foremost, Battlefield 1 is only catering to Gen 4 consoles, and no longer is it having to cater for Xbox 360 and PS3. This is a huge boost because the PS4 and Xbox One are a lot closer to the PC platform in terms of the hardware that they're using, and as well as sort of in general in performance. Now take that with a pinch of salt because we're talking about maybe 5 or 6 year old PCs, but give or take, it's a lot closer to what we're used to now. So as a result, they could develop things a bit more fine-tuned. The Frostbite engine's a bit more compatible across all 3 platforms, and considering the Xbox One is even using operating systems like Windows 10, things should be a lot easier for them to do. Now, alongside this as well, the development of the game and the game engine is very much improved from the last iteration. Battlefield 1 has been worked on for some time now, a very long amount of time. But what's important is that prior to this, not only did it have the improvements of Battlefield 4 by the end of its life cycle, it had the improvements of Hardline, and it also had the improvements of Star Wars Battlefront. So the Frostbite engine is effectively a powerhouse when it comes to smooth launches now. Star Wars Battlefront encountered very minimal, if not any, problems when it released, and I can imagine we're going to see a very similar pattern when it comes to Battlefield 1. Now, a true testament to this stability and performance is just the fact that the Battlefield 1 Alpha, in my opinion, ran probably 10 to 15 times better than the Battlefield 4 beta ever could. And it also replicates a lot of what we saw with Star Wars Battlefront in the sense that the SWBF beta and alpha were very smooth, and it appears that the alpha and most likely the beta of BF1 will also be very smooth. But the overall thing here is that previously, in previous Battlefield titles, including Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, we were working with a broken game that we had to fix. Now we're working with a stable game that we can improve. So it's more about the basis of improving things in Battlefield 1 in terms of performance and stability in a way that's just a bonus as opposed to fixing what already should have been there, which is a really good place to be at. Next up, we have balancing. Now, the limitations of weaponry in Battlefield 1 could actually come as a surprising bonus for players. Now, I felt with Battlefield 4, and I'm sure this is a universal opinion in many respects, the Battlefield 4's balancing was just not really there. Every gun felt the same to me. Every gun, by the end of the life cycle of the game at least, was just sort of hit and miss. In my opinion, you could pick up an M416 and then go pick up an AUG-A3, and the things would perform pretty much identically. Same thing with the M249 and the MG4, the L98 and the M98B. Lots of different comparisons could be made with very similar weapons, and at the end of the day, it really made no difference if you picked up either of those weapons. And also the problem lied as well was that there was way too many guns. Way too many. We had 10 or 15 assault rifles, 10 or 15 LMGs, 10 or so snipers, God knows how many handguns, don't even want to think about it, and enough SMGs to pretty much kill a small planet. So really, in the grand scheme of things, having less weapons to play around with in Battlefield 1 is a good thing, because it means we can focus on a smaller amount of weapons and a smaller amount of classes, and balance them equally in each to their own. We've already seen that classes in Battlefield 1 seem very much more predefined. SMGs are for close quarters, LMGs are for medium range, you've got the rifles for medium to long range, and the snipers for long range. If you try to move beyond these restrictions, you will likely get outgunned, so that balancing has already been set in stone. But now that we have less weapons to work with and more focus, I feel that Battlefield 1 can improve balancing as a whole in comparison to Battlefield 4. Next up, we have DLC, and this includes things like map packs and premium and just the general stuff we come to be used to as part of the gaming community. Now, in my opinion, Battlefield 4's DLC was just meh. There was nothing really special about it, there was no standout DLC, there was no DLC that really brought players back to playing Battlefield 4 because it was such an interesting thing and it changed up so much, and that needs to change a lot. Alongside this, some of the DLCs even broke the state of Battlefield 4. I remember Naval Strike completely grinding Battlefield 4 on PlayStation 4 to a halt because the update completely destroyed everything to do with the servers and it just turned into a glitchy mess. Considering the era of Battlefield 1, there's plenty of opportunities to focus DLC a lot more like Battlefield 3. In Battlefield 3, DLC was focused to a specific kind of DLC. We had close quarters ones, we had ones focused entirely on armor and tanks and getting kills in that respect, and it just felt a lot more fluid as a DLC system. Battlefield 1 can do the same thing. They could make close quarters style DLCs or they could make armored style DLCs, but what they could do entirely is focus on different regions of World War 1. Maybe focus on the Eastern Front, the Western Front, focus on Asia and the Pacific. It could be a really good idea to get diverse and thematic with their DLCs, which is what we're used to prior to Battlefield 4. Because let's be honest, do you guys really have a standout map from BF4's DLC? I know I don't. Next up is community engagement. Now, Battlefield 4 had these missions and things that they tried doing every once in a while to make the community more interested. Battlefield 1 can make improvements in this field. I feel like a lot of these missions attempted in Battlefield 4 was a system that really wasn't quite there. There was no real reward to it, except for battle packs that nobody actually liked, and there was no kind of thing to go for. It'd be really cool if rather than getting a gold battle pack for completing a certain amount of kills with a certain weapon, we could perhaps get a certain kind of camo or a weapon skin. Or say for example, if we get a certain amount of kills with a jet or a plane, we get specific amounts of camos or skins that are only available to that specific community challenge. This could all be improved considering Battlefield 1 has the option to integrate better systems. Alongside this, the Battlefield 1 era of World War 1 can integrate the community a bit more. It's very feasible that Battlefield could get people involved in history a bit more, or perhaps make certain events aware to them. I think it'd be really cool if they had a section in Battlefield 1 that was like this day during World War 1, and it would have March the 1st, March the 2nd, March the 3rd, and it would highlight all the key events that happened during World War 1 on those set days. Now that would be something really nice to add into the mix and just make the game feel a lot more wholesome in terms of content and in terms of lore and reasons to like kind of dive into the background of Battlefield, because there really is no way to do that in Battlefield 4. You can do that though now that we have the World War 1 theme. Alongside this, I also think this is a great opportunity to integrate the community of YouTube into Battlefield 1 a bit more. Like, we kind of see recently that there's been cinematics, there's been screenshots, there's been custom-made trailers, there's been all kinds of things that players have been working on. So why not cater to them a bit more? Give them some more options. HattyWatty has this tool that he's made, make servers more accessible, make the game more accessible for his tool. There's so many different things that they could do to make lives easier for people who spend ages on making content that's really good for Battlefield 1 and shows the game off for what it truly is. So why not help those guys a bit more and show them that, look, we can cater to your needs, we can help you with this camera tool, we can help you with this, that, and the other. I just feel like that's a really prime opportunity. Alongside that, I'd also like to see videos being showcased a bit more from the community. Now, it's all well and good posting videos on YouTube, but there's some really good ones out there that go really unnoticed a lot of the time. And it'd be great if somebody could just pick them up and throw them into a highlight reel on a page of Battlefield 1, considering they have the new UI. And finally, the last thing I feel Battlefield 1 can do better than Battlefield 4 is obviously map design. Battlefield 4's map design was poor. It was actually something like the artistic team of Battlefield 4 actually did the maps as opposed to the maps team of Battlefield 4. And it just shows, it's so evident in the actual game itself. There are no maps that flow perfectly, or, you know, they have it, like, if you go into certain games such as Rainbow Six Siege, or dare I say it, Counter-Strike, the maps are designed in a way that things happen because they've been designed to happen that way. Now, Battlefield 1 can do this. It can give you a dynamic map, but at the same time, it can give you a map which is fine-tuned. Now, a good example of this was St. Quentin's Scar. The objectives were really close together and quite easy to travel to, and because of that, there was just so much more action and so much more enjoyment of the gameplay. And I never got that sense of enjoyment or fast-paced gameplay when it came to Battlefield 4 because there were just no maps that catered towards it. And the only sort of standout features that people kept playing were the real clusterfucky maps, just because they were the ones where the action was at. And the action wasn't even that good, it wasn't an opportunity for you to have fun, it was just a grind fest. Now, we have this chance in Battlefield 1 with the new maps to change that around and give us some really good map design. Some maps that are as good to a standard that Battlefield 3 was at, or as good to a standard that Battlefield Bad Company 2 was at. And that's just one thing that we really need to do in order to make the game a lot more enjoyable across the board. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and make sure you share it. It's been me, TheTacticalBrit, and if you agree with me, let me know down in the comment section below. Or if there's anything that you want Battlefield 1 to do better than Battlefield 4, please let me know down below and I'll be interested to reply to some of your comments. As always, thank you for watching and I'll see you again soon.